Good afternoon, Santa Clarita, and everyone else streaming around the world. My name is Alex Urbina. I'm your host on this show of My Conscious Dad, and my lovely co-host is not here today. She's on a vacation, a well-deserved vacation, so we wish her well, and we're going to invite her to come back next Friday. But I did invite a special guest joining me today in studio. He is a good friend of mine. He's a client of mine. He's an amazing father and extraordinary and successful businessman. He's also a huge contributor to the community in many ways. His name is Fred Arnold. Thanks for being here on the show with me. I appreciate it.
Wow. Thank you for that beautiful introduction. I feel better about myself already. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So what I want to talk about today is how to be a better dad and more effective father, more importantly. And I think that if we have a discussion about this and just kind of talk a little bit about our own experiences, more importantly, my experience, and then as I share a little bit about some of the things that I've learned and things that I've discovered about myself to be a more effective dad, maybe you can kind of chime in and take the honesty chair and kind of own up to some things. And I think if we have that powerful dialogue, other parents, more importantly, dads, can listen in and kind of do some self-reflection and see if they can do some course correction in their own parenting.
Yeah, I think that would be terrific. You know, I've had the great opportunity to coach with Alex, and he's become my friend, and learn a lot from him on how to be a more conscious, loving, humble, authentic father and be vulnerable at times. And I think kicking it off, what I'd like to ask you, going right into it is, tell me about your journey about being a more conscious dad, because a lot of my clients are going to be listening to this, and how did you get to where you are now? Tell me about your story.
Well, for me, it started for me in a transformational training. It was a personal development workshop that I got invited to by a cousin of mine that had a profound experience and wake-up call for himself in his own life. And he came to me one day real vulnerable, and he wanted to share, and he thought that I would receive benefit from that kind of experience. And I took a leap of faith, and I trusted him, and I went into this training, and my eyes opened up for the very first time as a young man and really saw some things about myself that are very challenging to accept as a human being. I had to really look at my flaws. I had to really do a powerful self-assessment and figure out what was missing from where I am to where I want to be as a husband, as a dad, as a brother and son, and really kind of just take my life to the next level. So I had my awakening through a powerful transformational training. And then once that opened my eyes, I found myself a coach, and I surrounded myself around people that wanted to better themselves. And so I kind of immersed myself into this self-improvement journey and just kept working at it, just kept practicing and falling and picking myself up. And through that constant practice, my consciousness and my awareness just skyrocketed. It went to higher levels, and I continue to do and practice the same methods. I mean, when you find something that works, you just keep working it. Yep. And I become more effective and more loving and compassionate as a father. And now I teach other people. And it's funny because I don't know if you've ever heard this, but they say that which you need to learn, you need to teach. Yep. And in my coaching, sometimes I'm even with a session with you and I'm giving you some powerful advice, but I'm really telling myself this. Mm-hmm. So I'm actually getting the goodies too, because I need to hear it for the 100th time or the 250th time. So that's why I love, that you're here, is because we can have a conversation and really dialogue and talk about this. And you'll walk away being a better human being. I'll walk away being a better human being. But more importantly, if we let people listen in, they can also have those breakthroughs too.
One of the most important things that you had said early on in this discussion was, and I really want to dive deeper into it, is that you had a leap of faith. You had a leap of faith to try something different in a friend. And it seems like we either have to have a leap of faith, but a lot of times it's when we have a life-changing or dramatic event that happens in our life. For me, it was becoming divorced and going through that process and saying, okay, I need to look at myself and not blame others. Tell me about that leap of faith and how somebody who maybe has a comfortable life really looks at changing just to be better.
Yeah, that seems to be the big mystery, I think, when it comes to personal growth and making a commitment to work on yourself. If, their old axiom, if it's not broke, don't try to fix it type of saying.
Absolutely.
Well, I think most human beings, when their life is going okay, they become comfortable with okay. And as long as it's not worse, okay is enough. And so they just rely on their laurels, not until all of a sudden their kid's 14 or 15 years old and they're acting out.
Yep.
Or their kid's 17 years old and they're smoking weed or something. People don't respond until it's like a traumatic experience or it's now time for intervention. And I always say this, it's like you have these parents that you invite them to come, to a seminar or a workshop or to listen in. Some people are listening on the radio. They're going and they're listening to this show and they're going right past it. The other day I had somebody call because there was a fire in the freeway and they called in the studio and they said, hey, stop mumbo jumbling, rambling on your show there and start reporting this fire. And it goes to show you the mass unconsciousness of people is they don't want to hear this. Some people don't want to hear this.
And that was probably because they didn't want to hear it.
Because it forces you to look at yourself to see all the weak spots or the weak links you have in your chain. And the chain I'm talking about is the family chain. So when it comes down to personal growth, people don't all of a sudden get committed until there's some kind of intervention. Right. Very few people say, you know what, I don't need it, therefore I need to figure out why I don't need it. And then in that journey, you discover, wow, I need this more than anything that I've ever thought before.
One thing that's exciting about this conversation, and we're gonna have a few breaks and break down different things I've learned from you, is I read this saying. It says, if your brain is full, there's no room to learn. Or
if you know it all, then there's nothing else to know, right?
Or if you're always right, then how you ever going to reflect on what you can do better,
That's
right? And it's so, we laugh about it, but it's so true. We get so arrogant, we get so confident. But I tell you what, there wasn't a manual that I got on how to be a father. Not only how to be a father, but how to be a conscious, authentic, loving, grateful man and father for people that are looking for children that are looking up to me.
Okay, now I'm gonna entertain that for 2 seconds. Ready? 1, 2. Now I'm not going to entertain anymore because that worked back in the days when my mom and dad were growing up when they said there was no parent manual or book how to raise a kid. Right. Now there's thousands of books, including the book that I'm writing currently that is going to now break down distinctions more about who you need to be a more effective parent rather than the doingness. Because if you look at a lot of the books, they give you insight and they give you suggestions about do this, do that, do more, better, different. Right. But a lot of that is not solid, concrete, magical formula. My book's going to have a magical formula more on the distinctions of ways of being. And if you master those ways of being, you're going to start noticing the results shift a lot more.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Are we jumping to a break or are we still rolling?
No, we're rolling.
Okay, great. You don't want to jump into something right now.
But you know what I love? I love how you came in and just took over the show because I know you're a show host. And I know you're really excited because you're interviewing me and I love that. But it's okay. It's okay. I actually wrote down some things I want to throw out there and then let's just have a conversation about that.
You got it.
The first distinction I wrote down, and this is important because it's part of my book, is one of the chapters. It's called Be Responsible. Not do responsible, but be responsible. So take the perspective of I am responsible for my relationship between me and my kids. Not they owe me. Hey, look what I've done for you. Don't be so ungrateful. It's I'm responsible for the relationship. And this is what I wrote down. It's my responsibility to teach my kids and to model the behaviors and the way of being. You don't have to write this down. I'll give this to you. I'll send it to you digitally. It's my responsibility to teach my kids and to model the behaviors and the way of being that I want them to adapt and absorb and learn indirectly rather than trying to force it down the throat. Just model it and be it. Be responsible for our relationship. And if I can be that and master that, after a couple years, they're going to start responding and you're going to hear it in their voice. They're going to start coming and going, hey, Dad, you know what? I own this. I take responsibility for not bringing my bike in, and that's probably why I got stolen. Or, yeah, I take responsibility for not being here on time. I should have called you. And when you hear that in their voice and in their language, you're like, oh my God, where'd this kid come from? He came out of, and he was born out of your reflection and your modeling of being responsible for the relationship.
Okay, and I will say that your son or daughter didn't say that because you told them Why aren't you home? You're grounded. Your son and daughter learn that when you say, you know what? It's my fault you're home late because I forgot to tell you what the rules are. And I take responsibility for that. And next time I'll let you know where I stand with that. So it's my responsibility to let you know what the ground rules are, make it crystal clear. When you can take responsibility even for those things that, that you want to bow break.
Not even for.
I mean, everything. Exactly.
You have to learn and practice how to take responsibility.
And let me tell you what, that is hard for the average person to learn, right?
Challenging.
Because, okay, that's challenging. Thank you. Because they come home late and you're like, why are you late? Okay, it's past 1 o'clock, and then you browbeat them, you ground them, you take away the phone, or you just get mad at them. They didn't learn the responsibility part of it because you didn't take responsibility for being a part of that, of what happened. And it's a different paradigm.
Absolutely. And when you learn that, and you start to come from the beingness of I am responsible for my relationship with my son or daughter. I'm responsible for my communication to them. I'm responsible for holding the expectations. I'm responsible for all of that. Then when you come from that place, all of a sudden the words start coming and they're being born out of that. You have a new languaging. I can hear your languaging has shifted in the last year and a half since I've been working with you. You no longer speak as the victim. When you talk and we sit down, you're always owning up to it. And that's a powerful attribute to have. And I'm sure your kids are slowly picking up on that. And you're probably hearing some of it come back to you too.
Yeah, without a doubt, it's how you respond. I had a recent situation to come up with one of my children where they were really upset and they were really, how should I say it? Felt disrespected and they went off. I mean, I felt this boom, 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 boom. Like, whoa, where'd that come from? And instead of being defensive, I said, I apologize that you feel that way. I apologize that I created that situation. And I don't ever mean to do that. Will you explain more on how I upset you? And then my child explained it. And I says, well, I apologize. I did that. And I take responsibility for it. And instead of arguing about it, the response I got was, you know what, Dad, thank you very much. And I owe some of the responsibility too. And it was so magical because I was looking for conversation. I was looking to learn. And at the same time, by being humbled and being grateful and being gracious and asking, I got that in return.
This is what I tell my clients. If you ever have somebody, whether it's an employee or a child or even a spouse that you're upset about.
A girlfriend?
Anyone.
Boyfriend?
Yeah. Go to them and find the situation and speak into the situation from the responsible version. Right. And I guarantee you, if it's not the first time, it'll be the second time where they start arguing with you to try to take responsibility for. I swear, it's magical. If someone comes to you, they know they made a mistake. Instead of making them bad and wrong, you say, you know what? Yeah. Look, son, I take responsibility because I didn't tee up from you in the beginning what I really needed from you. So I'll own this one. And you'll be surprised. They'll turn around and they'll go, no, Dad, you know what? And it's so magical. You hit the button right on the head when you say that. It's magical because all you have to do is shift your come from the responsible version. I want to go over some of the benefits because I don't know if people are really wrapping their mind around this. Here are some of the benefits for you choosing to be responsible.
Can I mention one thing real quick? But it's not about you taking responsibility to see them take responsibility for you to win. It's you both win. It's the situation wins and you're able to come together at that point. And I think that's really an important concept to understand. I didn't do that so that I could win because they were grateful back. I did it so I can better communicate. I did it so that we can resolve the situation. I did it so we can have a more powerful relationship.
Absolutely. No, I get it.
And that's really the important thing you have to understand.
Yeah.
So, because it's completely unarrogant when you do it that way.
Yeah. So here are the benefits. One, it teaches them how to take responsibility for their own life, for their own relationships, for their own results. Two, it gives them a space to not be at fault. It gives them a safe space to not be blamed or picked on, which then in return, it frees them up to look at themselves, to reflect upon, to notice, to self-assess the part that they played on it. But if you're being the victim and blaming them, they can't assess themselves because they're too busy now being in reaction and resisting you. Right. Or worse, they go into parent deaf. They're deafening you out. Then
what was that? Give me that one. Parent deaf? Have you explained that one to me yet?
No, I haven't. So and then the third benefit is that it gives you power to change it. When you're the victim, you're powerless. You can't make changes because all you're going to do is just blame your kids. But when you take responsibility, that perspective shift now goes, okay, if I'm owning it, then there's things I could do to change it by making different choices, right? And then the last one is, one of the benefits is that it empowers and influences and inspires your kids when you choose to take the responsible version versus disempowering them. So what does it look like to disempower your kids?
It looks like telling them what to do. It looks like
or making them bad and wrong for what they did do.
Yeah.
Right?
And you're making an assumption right away because a lot of times we don't know the facts. You know, we create in our own minds why our children are late instead of finding out why. You know, my son a week ago was in a car accident. First thing he came in late, I'm not going to yell at him. Hey, what's going on? Where you been? Oh, I got an fender bender, Dad. This is what happened. Versus why are you late? Then all of a sudden walls come up and it becomes defending yourself. And then the next time you ask them a question, they're defending themselves versus having a conversation with
And
them.
what you're describing is a relationship that's reactive versus a relationship that's proactive. Yeah. And then, okay, so let's get to the next distinction. The next distinction, and also another chapter in my book, is being present.
So let's talk deeper about that because there's a big part of my adult life where I was about working hard. I was about, working from 7 to 7 and coming home. And I don't believe I was as present as a father and as a husband as I could have been. And you kind of get in this circle, merry-go-round, whatever they call it, hamster cage in life. And you forget to enjoy moments. You forget to, I think we talked about it one time where a child comes home with A's and B's and you, oh, that's nice versus, wow, let's throw a party. That's fantastic because you're not present, you're not hearing, you're not feeling, and you're not being.
Absolutely. When I talk about being present and breaking down the distinction, I write down be in the moment. Every new moment is a new moment that you really have to be fully aware. You have to be hyper aware in each moment. And I know for most of us, because we live unconsciously, it's very challenging for us to be in each moment. Where most of us live is in our mind thinking about what we're going to do next.
Right.
You can't be in your mind and be present at the same time. You can't be here and there at the same time. You got to choose one. And a lot of us, probably 80% of us, we live up in our mind. We're always wondering about this or we're trying to foresee the future instead of just being here in this present moment. So being present is about being hyper aware, being observant. You're attentive. You're noticing everything about your children. You're observing them. You're watching them intently. And then you're standing ready to be in service to them as you notice things that need to be course corrected. Now, how are you supposed to notice things that need course correcting if you're, checked out on, YouTube or on Facebook, or you're, worrying about other stuff, or you're just sitting there watching baseball and you're tuned out? You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to really, when your kids walk in from school or you walk into the home, you got to gear yourself. Sometimes some of my clients, I have them sit in their car in the driveway before they get off work and actually do a 5-minute process where they shift into daddy mode. They shift into husband mode. So that when they walk through the doors, they walk in with the intention to be present and be connected with their kids and their family. Yeah.
What I'm hearing you say and reflect on a lot of my life is the pause button. Are you able to hit the pause button on the TV? I mean, now with the DVRs now, or whatever they call them now, you get to hit the pause button and you receive the person who comes in the door, whether it be your spouse or significant other or child. Hit the pause button. The one thing that I notice more than anything is the telephone, is the iPhone, the iPad, the smartphone, all that. Not only do people think in their mind now they're being distracted by their phone. And I think that warrants a quick conversation about put it upside down, put it on silent, ask permission. Hey, do you mind if I check it if you're with somebody because you're checking on your kids? I find that one thing that once I put that phone upside down, when I'm in a session, when I'm with my kids, when I'm with somebody that's important to me, putting that phone down allows me to be present for them.
So can I tell on myself? I'm going to tell myself for a moment, because this is what I love most about personal growth is when my clients come to me and they tell on themselves. And that's where growth happens, is when you're finally willing to go, all right, ego, shut down. We get to tell on ourselves so we can have a growth process. So I'm going to tell on myself. When it comes to being present, last Friday, we had we've been Facebook Live. That's what we've been doing. That's our new thing now. And we got this incredible system set up. And last Friday, the system wasn't working. And I got stuck in my head for the first probably half a session where I wasn't present and in the moment with my daughter having this show. And I realized at a certain point that I got to get off it. So when I finally surrendered, it freed me up to be present in the moment. Mm-hmm. Well, guess what happened before we started this show? It happened again. We didn't get Facebook Live, but I got to get off it. I got to bring the show in. I was excited about you being here and it allowed me to be present and be with you in this moment. And I'm grateful for the last 20 minutes. So we're going to go on a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about some of the benefits to being present. Stay tuned for more of My Conscious Dad right here on your hometown station, AM 1220. KHTS.